Spring Boot Mini Project Storyboard Session 7. Storyboard of Mini Project Layered Application. Task: Get employee detail from EMP database table of Oracle based on the given three designation. Input: real-time DI test, client app, precedence logic, precedence logic, and list employee object and sorted. And after that, designation 1, designation 2, designation 3, play role operation controller, controller class, monitoring logic, and list employee object sorted, and designation 1, designation 2, designation 3, and employee service interface implements employee service implementation class, service class, b logic, service logic, gross salary and net salary calculation, and uppercase designation 1, designation 2, designation 3, employee DAO interface implement employee DAO implement class, and convert to RS record to em, list employed object model class Java Bean, and then Hikari data source connecting to data source implementing Hikari data source class. So SQL query with the designation 1, designation 2, designation 3, Oracle database software EMP table. Give bunch of employee record as result set object. Data source class object will be injected to DOA class object. Data class object will be injected to service class object. Service class object will be injected to controller class object. Client app get controller class object using ctx.getBean bean method. Dependency injection using at AutoWire dependency lookup. Client app get controller class object using ctx.getBean bean method. In layered applications of the Spring and Spring Boot apps, we make the classes of different layer like service class, DAO class, controller class, and etc. as different Spring Bean to make as a container taking taking care of their life cycle management and dependency management activity. At that service to make the Java class as Spring Bean come service class at that repository to make the Spring Java class as Spring Bean come DOA class at that controller to make the Java class as Spring Bean come controller class. So storyboard data Oracle database software EMP database table. When we add Spring Boot starter JDBC var.jar file as dependency, we get following classes as Spring Bean through auto configuration, Hikari data source object. These are unused object in this project. JDBC template object named parameter JDBC template object and etc. We can give input to any auto configuration activity using application.properties file entries. We can make Hikari data source object pointing to JDBC controller connection pool for Oracle by providing Oracle JDBC driver detail from application.properties file. Spring data source driver hyphen class name oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. Spring data source dot URL equals to JDBC colon Oracle colon theme colon at the rate localhost colon 1521 dot colon XC. Spring data source dot username equals to system, and spring dot data source dot password equals to manager tiger or anything. Key are fixed. So value are programmable choice. Manager, this is value, password is values are programmer choice. So The Hikari data source object represents a JDBC connection pool will have set of readily available readily available JDBC connection object pointing to database software whose JDBC driver details are specific in the application.properties file. Example 1. If application.properties file contain Oracle JDBC driver detail that we get JDBC connection pool having JDBC connection object of Oracle. If application.property file contain MySQL JDBC driver detail, then we get a JDBC connection pool having JDBC connection object of MySQL. We can collect the fixed key of application.properties file from the http docs spring.io slash springboot docs current slash reference slash html slash application hyphen properties dot xml. DAO interface and DAO implementation class. I employ DAO.java DAO interface, public interface. I employ DAO and public list employee and get employee by designation degix. So string designation 1 designation 2 string designation 2 string designation 3 throw exception. Okay, created interface. After that, employee DAO implement dot java DAO implementation class @ repository and repository name emp DOA. Public class employee DAO implementation I interface DAO. Okay. Private static final get string get emp query equals to select emp number, name, job, salary, department number from emp where job in 1 question mark 2 question mark 3 question mark order by job. Auto wired private data source DS. The IOC container or injects Hikari data source object that comes through auto configuration. Public list employee get EMPs by designation string designation 1 string designation 2 string designation 3 throw exception and list employee list equals to null. Try connection connect con equals to ds dot get connection keeps pulled JDBC connection object and create here properties prepared statement. Okay, prepared statement ps equals to connection dot prepare statement get employee query. I pass here one get employees query set value to query parameter ps dot set string 1 1 designation 1 ps dot set string 2 designation 2 ps dot set string 3 designation 3 1 2 3. Execute the SQL query result try result set equals to rs equals to ps dot execute query. Copy each record of result set object to model class object and while rs dot next true, then copy each record to employee class object. Employee emp equals to new employee emp set eid rs dot get int 1 emp dot set name rs dot get string 2 emp dot set design rs dot get string 3 emp dot set department number rs dot get int 5 and emp dot set salary rs dot get float 4 and each and add each model class object to rs and last list dot add emp close while try close and try to close try one close and catch exception sql exception sc dot print stack trace throw sc exception throwing for exception propagation. Another exception e dot print stack trace and throw e exception throwing for exception propagation. Return list. Lastly, return list and method close class close. employee.java model class Java Bean. So I create here public class employee, private integer eno, private in string ename, private string job, private double salary, private integer department number, and private double gross salary, private double net salary. And in the top of class I write here data from Lombok API. Given all toString and setter getter method gives setter getters toString has code equals and etc method. At the data annotation of the Lombok API give multiple common code to the Java class setter method, getter method, toString, has code equals methods and etc. All data source classes are the implement class of the JSX SQL data source interface. So to inject data source object to DAO class object, we need to take javax.sql SQL data source interface type has a property having at the auto-wide annotation so that we can inject our choice data source object time to time to the DAO class object. So before before okay, rs result set object 101 Raja clerk 9456 and 102 Suresh manager and 19,000, 104 Ramesh salesman 7,000. Before and after, I think some before and after, but FR before FR after LR. Going to employee class object, going to employee class object, going to employee class object, Java Bean object, and list employee object having 0, 1, 2. In DAO class, we already separate query from the code. We place SQL query to at the top of the class in uppercase letter as the value of string contact con, constant value variable private static final. For easy modification purpose, all data sources class implement java x.sql.data source in interface. So we can data source object to DAO class object by placing auto-wired auto-wired on the top of JSX data source interface type has a property. In In layered application, in layered app development, we need to catch and throw the exception in the following layer to pass catch, and in layered app development we need to catch and throw the exception in the following layer pass propagate the execution exception to called previous layer, dual layer, service layer, controller layer, and we need to catch and handle the exception in the client app to present exception to end user in the form of non-technical guiding message because all input and all output error should be taken or given from the end user only from client app. It is recommended to use separate JDBC connection pool connection for every precedence operation we do on the database software because the rollback precedence operations should not affect other precedence operations that are happening. Client app main class run the application 1, 2 load main class, 3 does many things include IOC container creation, 4th collect the configuration class name, 5th load and create this configuration class, and 6 the at the rate enable auto configuration of at the rate spring boot application, check for setter jar files to make container class as Spring Bean. Find all Spring Boot starter JDBC jar to make the following class as Spring Bean by collecting input from application.properties file. And 7, component scan of Spring Boot application. Scan the current package com.nt and its sub package of Java classes that are annotated stereotype annotations, and also get their scope, and also notice that there are no @bean method recognize DOA service controller class as Spring Bean having stereotype annotations. 7, 8, pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Bean and necessary dependent injections using @auto_void take place. Employ DAO implementation class object creation injected with Hikari data source object. Employee service implement class object creation inject with employee DOA implementation class object. Payroll operations controller class object creation injected with employee service implement class object. 9. All singleton scope Spring Bean class object reference will be kept in the internal cache of IOC container. 10. Get IOC container application.context ctx. Then 11 payroll controller equals to get ctx.getBean payroll operation control dot class. Execute payroll application dot class, and payroll is here 12 payroll operation dot object reference, and payroll operation dot control equals to control, and 14 control dot show all employee dot by employee by designation color manager salesman. 15 is going to method having public list employee show all employee by designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 and throw exception. And 16 list employee list equals to service dot fetch employee by designation, and designation 1 designation 2 designation 3. 16 17 is going to service implementation class, and list service implementation method class method public list employee fetch all employee by designation string designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 throw exception. 18 get employee by designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 and list DOA dot get. Okay, so list is storing, and 18 19 is going to here get employee by designation string designation 1 string designation 2 designation 3 throw exception, and 20 return list. After this happening, returning list. Okay, after this, then storing list and list storing list employee and return list. 22 23 catch this list and store list employee list uh, service giving to list and restoring and returning list. 24 25 catch the list and list store here and store, and going to list dot for each employee lambda expression system.println emp. 26 and printing all the messages or list, and 26 27 close the IOC container and vanish the all objects, and 28 it is end of the application. So this is flow of execution. Precedence logic. And coming to next topic, procedure to develop Spring Boot layer application. Okay, procedure to develop Spring Boot layered application. Step 1, make sure that Oracle database software is installed and the default database table AMP is available. Step 2, make sure that STS plugin in install in Eclipse IDE. And step 3, create Spring Boot starter project. Add the following starter: JDBC API, Lombok, and driver, Oracle driver. So first is start Spring Boot starter. Then write here project name and select Maven and jar file for standalone application, and it is select Java version and group name, company name, and this is project name, and this is his description, and package is com.nt. And next is, and add also this Lombok and JDBC API and Oracle. So database table in Oracle: EMP, e-number, e-name, job, sal, MGR, MGR, high, higher date, and commission and department number. So step 4, add following entries in application.properties. So these are for SQL properties, and right here driver class name, URL, username, password. If you want to add a new starter in the middle of project development, then you can use the following procedure: right click on the project, Spring, go to Spring, add starters, select new starter, select pom.xml, and finish. To get all keys of application.properties file, refer to this HTML path or link. How to configure Lombok API plugin in Eclipse IDE? Answer: go to help menu, install new software, search, and add URL. So this is URL. Select all, checkbox, next, next, next. Ask to reset ID. It's new and latest approach, so all approaches of running Lombok API jar file option is not required. While developing layered application using Spring Boot framework, we need to make the following classes implementing interfaces. A, all data source classes should implement Jakarta.SQL data source interface, and luckily the data source class given by Hikari CP, CP3PO, C3PO, vVur, vVur, and etc. are already implementing uh, javax.sql data source interface Jakarta. B, all DAO class should be implement common DAO interface. Use case 1, DAO class 1, Oracle precedence logic, DAO class 2, MySQL precedence logic, DAO class 3, like Postgre precedence logic. Use case DAO 1 for plain JDBC precedence logic, class 2, Spring JDBC precedence logic, DOA class 3, Spring ORM precedence logic. All service class should be implement common service interface. Use case service class 1, B logic using Formula 1, Spring service class 2, B logic using Formula 2. Note: since controller class always act as a target class and it is not dependent to other Spring Bean, so we do not implement any interface on controller class. How to do how do you propagate pass exception rise in the DAO class to client app and user in layered architecture based project while developing While developing the layer application, the DOA class, service class, controller class will be following things to pass, propagate the rise exception to client app and end user. End user gives input to the client app and export success output failure error from client app itself through error rise and any part of the project. We need to declare the exception to be thrown using throw statement in DOS service controller class. Do not and catch and handle exception using try catch block, or we need to catch and handle the exception in DOA service controller class using try catch block, or they try with resource plus catch blocks, but we need to throw the exception catch block using throw statement. Because of the above operation, this exception rise in DOA class will propagate directly through an process to service class. Service class the propagate the receive exception to controller. Controller class the propagate the receive exception to client app. The client app receive the exception flow, exception and handling the exception using try catch block to display exception rise technical message is to end user and non-technical guidance message to end user. How to convert RS object result set record to list of Java bin class. So before FR 101 Raja, 102 Rajesh, 103 Suresh, after LR. So going to employee object, employee object, storing to array list, link list collection, and note in the DOA class we place all the SQL query at the top of the class as the value of private static final string constant variable that to uppercase letter to the dif, differentiated them from the regular Java code. So relevant code in GDA implement class private static final static get EMPs by designation select ename EMP number ename job salary department from the EMP where job in question mark question mark question mark. Auto-wired private data source DS and same thing public list employee fetch employed by designation string designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 throw exception list employee list equals to null try connection con equals to ds dot get connection and create prepared statement by you making the query pre-compiled SQL query. So prepared statement ps equals to connection con dot prepared statement and get amps by designation pass this uh, variable and set value to query parameter ps dot set string 1 designation 1 ps dot set string p designation 2 ps dot set string 3 designation 3 try catch result set rs equals to ps dot execute query list equals to new array list and while rs dot next copy each record value to java bean class employee emp equals to new employee emp dot set enum rs dot get int 1 emp set ename get string 2 emp dot set salary get double 3 emp dot set designation rs dot get string 4 emp dot set department number rs dot get int 5 and list dot add emp and throw and try close and try close one to close catch SQL exception SC throw SC and catch exception E throw E exception throwing propagation and return list. In Spring we can make Java class as Spring Bean either using stereotype annotation that plays on the top of user defined class using @bean method @bean methods of @configuration class. In Spring Boot, we can make Java class as Spring Bean using stereotype annotations that place on the top of user defined class using @bin method of configuration class using auto configuration activity based on the starter that are added to the class path build path of the project. After that, package com dot this is service and list and import auto-wired service and the stereotype not annotations at the rate service emp service and auto-wired I employ DAO and override fetch employed by designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 throw exception and designation 1 equals to designation 1 dot 2 uppercase designation 2 equals to designation 2 2 uppercase and 3 2 uppercase. Okay, after that list employ list empdo dot get emp by designation and pass these three variable and to dot sort t1 t2 lambda expression t1 dot get emp number to compare t2 get emp number calculate gross salary net salary and list dot for each emp curly bracket emp dot set gross salary emp dot get salary plus emp dot get salary divide 0.5 emp dot net salary emp dot gross salary minus emp dot gross salary divide multiply 0.5 multiply 0.2 and close and return list. And this is the structure of files. After that, assignment. Okay, develop the mini project as the layered app to get hospital detail based on the three location. In order to work within Lambok API in the our Eclipse IDE project, we need to perform the following operations. Lambok API jar library in the project, we can add this as the Spring Boot starter, Maven and Gradle dependency, add project Lambok related P2 plugin to the Eclipse IDE. The procedure is help menu, install new software, add name, Lombok API, URL. This is URL select checkbox next accept all condition and terms next automatically restart the IDE. In the above layer app we taken interface implementation class model for data source DAO service logic because they are dependent other different classes whereas for controller class such dependent is not taken because that is always target class and never going to be dependent class to other class. DAO logic are keep in interface implementation class model because in different implementation class we can write the precedence logic using different precedence technologies or framework like JDBC, Hibernate, Spring ORM, Spring Data JPA and etc. Service logic are keep in interface implement class because in different implementation class we can write the B logic using different formula and algorithm. Data source logic are keep in interface implement class model that gives flexibility to inject our choice data source class object to DAO class object. So Jakarta.sql.data source interface having package Hikari data source, package combo pooled data source, basic data source and Oracle UCP data source. So default is Hikari CP data source. Improvising the client app by opening and closing IOC container and scanner object using try and with the try with resources because both objects auto closable object client package com.nt and import SQL exception list in scanner Spring application Spring Boot application and application context configurable application context imported controller payroll management operation controller and import employee and public class name having one annotation at the rate Spring Boot annotations, Spring Boot application annotation, and main method try configurable application context dot configurable ctx equals to application spring application dot run method having class name args. Get scanner sc equals to new scan system in and get controller spring bean class object and payroll management operation controller equals to ctx dot get bean payroll controller payroll management operation controller dot class read input from the end user system dot println enter designation 1 string designation 1 equals to sc dot next sc dot string designation 2 sc dot next and string designation 3 sc dot next. Invoke the beam method list employee list equals to control so all control dot so employee by designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 system dot println employee belonging to designation 1 designation 2 designation 3 are list dot for each employee lambda expression uh, system dot println emp printing all emp list try uh, for each close try close at this object created in try with resource will be closed automatically. ctx accepts execution e exception e system dot print internal problem e dot get message e dot print stack trace close catch close main close class. In real time, all developers prefer operating database software using GUI database tool. GUI database tool like SQL Developer for Oracle, MySQL Bench for MySQL and etc. Need separate installation part of a MySQL database software installation. How to avoid the typecasting while closing the IOC container in the Spring Boot application. First, using configurable application context to refer application string application spring application dot run method returning IOC container object. Example configurable application context ctx equals to spring application dot run class name dot class args. Answer 2 using try with the resource to open application context IOC container since application context IOC container is auto closable object. It will be closed automatically at the end of the try block. So try configurable application context ctx equals to spring application dot run and class name dot class and args and try try close and catch exception e dot print stack trace no need to closing ctx dot close. So can you tell me how did you get dependency injection in real project? Generally the real time project are layered application or project in which we try to inject spring bean as shown described below. We inject data source object to DOO class object. We inject DOO class object, service object, service class object. We inject service class object to controller class object. And finally, we get controller class object in the client app using ctx.getBean method call. So this is all about Spring Boot mini project storyboard session 7.